One of the things that you always hear about this time of year is how important draft capital is for rookie hit rates in fantasy, which is true. Draft capital is very important and it signifies a team's confidence in a player and that player's opportunity given to succeed at the next level. But I still feel like every year we need a reminder of how important draft capital is at each position, because even though we know how important it is, it's very easy to throw that out the window in favors of players that you really love before the draft. So let's take a look. Now, this is a very simple but powerful chart that shows player hit rates by position by round among all drafted players since 2000. And I defined a hit as one top 24 season by running backs or wide receivers, or one top 12 performance by quarterbacks and tight ends. So let's go position by position here. First up, I think everybody knew how this quarterback chart was going to look, with the largest success rate coming in the first round and then really steep drop-offs for every round after that. Sure, there are players drafted later in the NFL that have huge success, but for every Tom Brady, Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, there are 5 A.J. McCarrons, Nathan Petermans, and Matt Corrals. Even the first round itself is very important for quarterbacks, and in fact, it's really the first 12 picks that are the most important, as the hit rate for quarterbacks drafted 12 or earlier rises from 33% up to 44%, and the hit rate after pick 12 is just 9.5%. So something to keep note on this year if you really love Bo Nix or Michael Penix, as the success rate for them being drafted after pick 12 overall really falls historically, let alone if they were even to fall out of round 1 entirely. Now, at the running back position, this chart is really amazing. An 81% hit rate in round 1, a 60% hit rate in round 2, then a 40% hit rate in round 3, and a precipitous drop rate from there for rounds 4 through 7. This is exactly what I refer to when I say day 3 running backs don't matter, and for the most part, are all the same. If you're not a day 1 or day 2 pick at running back, you're probably not going to have a meaningful career for fantasy. It's not to say that they're not going to have moments. Plenty of day 3 guys have weeks or stretches at a time of relevance production, but it's just really not sustainable and it shouldn't be bought into, especially early in rookie drafts. And one thing that I've heard recently too is, well, this doesn't apply anymore because the NFL is devaluing the running back position and they're being drafted later. Well, not really. Yes, the NFL has devalued running backs, and yes, we're at the point where I think we're done seeing guys taking top 10 consistently every year, unless there is like a generational can't miss talent in the player pool, like Bijan Robinson last year. But the NFL will still take guys round 1. We just saw 2 go round 1 in 2023. We saw 2 go in round 1 2021. And in fact, since 2000, the only years that we haven't seen a first round running back were 2014 and 2022. Every other year, there's been at least one first round running back, if not even multiple. Now, maybe what the NFL is actually doing is now treating the second round more like the first round for running backs. And if you actually filter down this chart to just since 2018, the hit rate for second round running backs has increased from 59.5% up to 64%, and the first round hit rate has dropped a little bit. Actually, the third round hit rate has dropped from 41% to 29%, and again, it is still really bad to be a day 3 pick. Just because Dameon Pierce, Tyler Algier, and Isaiah Pacheco hit a couple years ago and Pacheco is still going does not mean that that's the new norm. It's just an outlier to the same rule that we've had for years, which feels even more important to say this year, given the RB class that we have and their projected draft capital in 2024. Now, for wide receivers, again, like running backs, the first round is so important for these guys. Second round is really nice too. Third round is where you're kind of getting a suspect, and then day 3 is, of course, terrible. I think it's interesting how low all of these numbers are compared to running backs, which I think just speaks to how hard it is to hit on receivers just in general for the NFL and for fantasy. We want to group in round 3 with round 2 and just say, as long as you're a day 2 guy, you're okay, but that doesn't really seem to be the case. And again, more recently, since 2018, the hit rate for all day 2 receivers have dropped in both rounds, while the first round hit rate has actually gone up. I'm sure there's probably some bias in here from a very small sample size, but this could be indicative of how the NFL is changing with the wide receiver position, and first round draft capital is perhaps even more important for receivers. And then lastly, for tight ends, it really just is first round or bust. I do think it's interesting how flat the curve is from rounds 2 through 4. Still a very low hit rate, but showing that there's not much difference historically in draft capital in that range is still very interesting to me. But first round is where you want to be if you are a tight end, and that's just another feather in the cap for Brock Bowers' potential success at the NFL level. So that is your annual reminder about the importance of NFL draft capital, but why stop there? Since we're talking about positional hit rates by rounds, let's take a look at Superflex rookie ADP and see if the Dynasty community is good at predicting players or not. So once again, here are the hit rates by position based on Superflex rookie ADP from real Dynasty leagues from 2017 through 2021. It is a small sample size, I know, but that's what we have to work with here. And as you can see from this chart, the hit rates line up really well with the actual NFL, meaning generally the players that the NFL hits on in round 1, we also hit on in the first round, and vice versa, because the main players who didn't hit in round 1 of rookie drafts were the players who just busted in the NFL for whatever reason. Think guys like N'Keal Harry, Sony Michel, Jalen Reagor, Josh Rosen, Zach Wilson. The NFL swung and missed on those guys, and because we're mostly following the NFL here, we also swung and missed on those guys. But there are other takeaways from this chart that I think are really, really important. First off, look at the hit rate at the tight end position. It's actually wild to see that we've been very successful at predicting tight end players since 2017. In fact, of the 9 tight ends that we've drafted in the first 2 rounds of rookie drafts, only OJ Howard and Irv Smith have yet to post a top 12 season, and of the 7 players who have posted a top 12 season, all but Kyle Pitts and Pat Freiermuth have actually posted multiple top 12 seasons, which I'm sure is going to change at least in 2024 for Kyle Pitts. So I think this is very interesting for the 2024 class, not just for Brock Bowers, he's a very obvious player, but also Jatavian Sanders and or possibly Theo Johnson or Ben Sinnott, depending on their NFL draft capital and landing spot. Also of note here, Michael Mayer was a second-round pick in last year's class, so he could be a sneaky trade target right now, just like Trey McBride was this time last year. The second observation is just the hit rates for running back and wide receiver positions after the second round in rookie drafts. And this is really why I target running backs so late in drafts over any other position, because 1, they're somewhat easier to predict in terms of opportunity at the NFL level, and then 2, just the nature of the running back position in general. Most NFL teams are going to go to 2, 3, 4 running backs in a given year because of injury at various points in the season. So a lot of those guys get unexpected opportunity that we might not have predicted. Plus, when they do get that opportunity, we know when they're going to be a starter in the NFL, so we can be more confident in starting them in fantasy. They have a greater fantasy impact than a wide receiver 5 who becomes a wide receiver 3 for a game because there's injuries above him. So for me, I'm just taking basically all running backs in round 3 on. Based on this chart, maybe you can take a tight end too if he has the draft capital, fits the profile of a productive fantasy tight end, not a blocking tight end, but a fantasy tight end. But I'm not really looking at wide receiver. I'm definitely not really looking at quarterback here unless someone absolutely falls, which, to speak to that, the third round hit rate for receivers is so high because it's carried by receivers in 2017 and 2018 that fell in rookie drafts and shouldn't have. I'm talking Chris Godwin, Cooper Kupp, Kenny Golladay, and DJ Chark. Based on my marker system, all 4 of those guys were much better prospects than the NFL believed. I actually had Godwin, Kupp, and Chark all ahead of John Ross and Curtis Samuel in their given draft years, but they all fell to the third round in the NFL draft and thus also fell in rookie drafts. Now, it doesn't necessarily happen all that much, but when it does, we should still be targeting those guys. Josh Downs was the kind of player for me in last year's class that fit this bill, which did work out for his rookie year, so we'll see how that continues in 2024 and beyond. My watch list for 2024, it's really just Troy Franklin in case he were to fall to round 3, and then just seeing where Malik Washington goes, hopefully in round 3, but more likely in round 4. I'm still very interested in him depending on his landing spot. But that's basically it. I'm sorry if this video was more of like a huge data dump of information than a normal video on this channel, but I had to just get this out there to y'all and hopefully help put this into your minds as the NFL draft is in just a couple of days and your rookie drafts are going to be right after. Definitely drop a comment down below if you have any questions, and if you haven't yet, check out some of my favorite late round rookies that I'm going to be watching on draft day to target late in my rookie drafts, and you can check that out right up here.